quickly because I don't want to pass them up, and maybe I'll do more later. One has to do, the title of the article is Savage, Baffling Attack on a Couple in a Berkeley Home. A popular University of California professor and his wife were brutally beaten on their heads. The wife, both of them were left for dead. Dr. Robert Mishell and his wife Barbara she was in a coma. He couldn't speak, but his eyes were open. This was in the San Francisco Chronicle, February the 2nd, 1988. They were attacked at 3 o'clock by an assailant with a blunt instrument that was in their apartment, seemed to be known to them, severely beaten. Dr. Mishell works in the laboratory at UC California in the Department of Immunology. UC officials said his colleagues were absolutely flabbergasted at the attack. And this is the important sentence I want to share with you now. Dr. Ann Good, vice chairman of the Microbiology and Immunology Department, said, "It seems to be totally out of the blue and makes no sense whatever. It seems to be an act of random violence. And these random attacks, all too often, hit people who are benefiting society." Now, in my 23 years of research, this is one of the few times that I have seen it expressed in writing by a friend of persons who've been attacked or even people who've been killed. The connections are not being made except for the major, if there's a major or minor, and that's impossible, but connections are made between the murder of John Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, Martin Luther King, for various reasons. But if I have one contribution to leave for my 23 years research, I believe it is the compilation of books and articles of death squads in this country identical to El Salvador, Guatemala, Chile, Argentina, around the world, in Germany prior to World War II, in Japan prior to World War II. The death squads continued by the same people to wipe out the labor leaders, the voices of protest, the artists, the writers, the creative people in our society. And what I'm putting together in my files and hopefully get into some computerized form and make it available are those people who all too often are hit, who are benefiting society. The article said that in his busy research and teaching as a professor of immunology, he found time to bring into his laboratory minority and disadvantaged students from local high schools. He was also instrumental in getting minority students into the Department of Programs at UCB. So he was working with blacks and minority. He was working on the immune system, and there's a lot of literature, more coming out all the time about AIDS being a genetically altered, a biological disease done by the government as a warfare weapon. The article goes on to say his backgrounds were at Stanford University, the National Cancer Center in Bethesda, Maryland, Scripps Clinic in La Jolla, and during the 60s and 70s he was known as press representative for the Faculty Peace Committee, a group of UC professors opposed to the war in Vietnam, and they were bludgeoned practically to death. I haven't seen an obituary. They may survive this, but this was just one day before the vote on the Iran-Contra affair. Another small article, and I do suggest you listeners from coast to coast or even in Europe or wherever, start saving obituaries and look at the age and see what the person was doing and scotch tape them to a piece of paper and save them for a few months and then send them to me. This was an obituary from the Washington Post. Travers J. Bell Jr., 46, founder of the only black-owned member firm of the New York Stock Exchange, died January 25th at his home in New York City after an apparent heart attack. There's a rampant epidemic of apparent heart attacks. He started the Wall Street security firm of Daniels and Bell in 1971 with $175,000. The company grew to the net worth of $15 million, specializing in underwriting securities of minority-owned businesses, and there aren't many of those people writing the securities for minority-owned businesses. Now, another subject that I've done on past broadcasts, and I hate to rush through this so quickly, but you can get the tapes going back to January 26, 1986, has to do with a company called Advanced Genetic Sciences that wanted for the first time in the history of their experiences or anyone else to test genetically altered bacteria on farms in Monterey County and strawberry plants. The operation was called Frostban. And I went to the hearings of the Board of Supervisors and had done homework on the people, the board of directors that formed AGS and the company, and realized that